The November wind cut through Fort Bragg like a blade. I was Sergeant First Class Maya Calloway, 29 years old. 6 years in the United States Army. 3 deployments to places that still haunted my dreams. And 1 husband named Daniel. I had earned everything I owned with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. My rank. My medals. My reputation on base. But the one thing I thought I had earned without trying, love, that was the one thing slowly being stolen from me. It was 5:30 in the morning when my phone buzzed on the metal nightstand beside my bunk. The name on the screen made my heart stop. Aunt Carol. Aunt Carol never called this early. Aunt Carol only called when something was wrong. I answered before the second ring. Maya. Her voice was destroyed. Hollow. Like someone had reached inside her chest and pulled everything out. It's your mama, baby. I sat up straight. My blanket fell to the floor. My boots were still unlaced beside the bed. What happened? She collapsed last night in the kitchen. They rushed her to Memorial. Maya. A long pause. The kind of pause that carries the weight of words too heavy to say. The doctors are saying her heart is failing. They're giving her maybe 3 days. Maybe less. 3 days. Maybe less. The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. My mother. Eleanor Hayes. The woman who had raised me alone from the age of 7 when my father decided that a family was too heavy a burden to carry. The woman who worked double shifts at Patty's Diner every weekend so that I could have new school shoes every September. The woman who sat in the front row of my high school graduation with roses in her arms and tears streaming down her face. The woman who held my hands at my wedding and whispered, "He better deserve you, Maya. He better spend every single day trying to deserve you." She was dying. And I was 400 miles away behind a locked military gate. "Carol," I whispered. "Tell her I'm coming. Tell her I'm on my way. Tell her to hold on." "I'll tell her, baby," Carol said softly. "I'll tell her." I was dressed and running across the base before the sun had even fully risen. Captain Reeves' office light was already on. She was always the first one in and the last one out, a woman built from discipline and quiet strength. I had admired her since my first week at Fort Bragg. Today, I needed her more than I had ever needed anyone in uniform. I knocked twice and pushed the door open. "Calloway," she said without looking up from her desk. "It's not even 0600. Sir, I need emergency family leave. My mother is in the hospital. Doctors are saying she has 3 days. I need to get to Tennessee tonight." Captain Reeves looked up slowly. Her eyes were steady but not cold. She was reading me the way experienced officers read soldiers, looking past the surface, down into the bone. She set her pen down. "Sit down, Calloway." I sat. She folded her hands on the desk. "I want to help you. I genuinely do. But tomorrow morning we have a mandatory division readiness evaluation. Direct order from General Patterson. No personnel leaves this base. Not for any reason. I submitted the paperwork 3 weeks ago. My hands are tied until this evaluation clears." I stared at her. "Sir, my mother is dying." "I know." And her voice broke just slightly on those 2 words. Just slightly. Enough for me to know she meant it. "I know, Sergeant. I'm going to file an emergency humanitarian exception first thing this morning. I'm going to push as hard as I can. But I need you to understand, this may take 48 hours to process. Maybe longer. 48 hours. My mother had 3 days. Maybe less." I walked out of that office and stood in the cold November air, and I did something I had not done since my second deployment in Afghanistan. I cried. Not gently. Not quietly. I stood behind the supply building where no one could see me, and I pressed my back against the cold concrete wall, and I cried until my chest hurt. I called Daniel at 7 a.m. Daniel Calloway. My husband of 6 years. The man who had kissed me goodbye at this very base 18 months ago with promises warm enough to last a winter. The man whose photograph sat on my nightstand next to my mother's. The man I had planned my entire future around, a house in Tennessee, maybe children someday, a porch swing, a garden, a life. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. "Maya." His voice was strange. Slightly breathless. Slightly guarded in a way I told myself I wasn't noticing. "Daniel, it's Mom. She's in the hospital." Her heart is failing. Aunt Carol says she has days. I'm trying to get emergency leave, but I'm stuck on base until at least tomorrow night. I need you to go to the hospital, Daniel. I need someone there with her. Please. Silence. Not the silence of shock. Not the silence of someone absorbing terrible news and reaching for the right words. A different kind of silence. The silence of someone calculating. Maya, I have work tomorrow. Henderson's been on my case about the Morrison account, and I can't just, Daniel. I know how that sounds, Daniel. My voice dropped to something very quiet and very still. The voice I used when I meant every single word. My mother is dying. I cannot leave this base. You are the only person I am asking. Go to that hospital and sit with her. Please. Another pause. Okay, he said finally. Okay, I'll go. I exhaled. Thank you. Call me when you get there. Call me as soon as you see her. I will, he said. He didn't call. By noon I had called him 3 times. No answer. By 3 p.m. I was calling Aunt Carol every hour for updates. He hasn't shown up, Maya, Carol said carefully. Too carefully. The way people talk when they know more than they're saying. Your mama keeps asking for you. She's asking for you by name, baby. I know, I whispered. I know. I'm trying, Carol. I promise I'm trying. I went back to Captain Reeves twice that day. She was fighting for me. I could see it in the dark circles forming under her eyes, the stack of paperwork on her desk, the way she kept her phone pressed to her ear. But bureaucracy moves at its own speed, and it does not care about dying mothers or desperate daughters. At 6 p.m. Daniel finally called back. Hey, he said. Casual. The way you say hey when you're calling about nothing. Daniel, where are you? Have you been to the hospital? A pause. I got tied up. Something came up with work. I'll go tomorrow morning, first thing, I promise. Something cold moved through me. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter than anger. Something that sits in the stomach and waits. My mother might not have until tomorrow morning, I said slowly. Maya, I think you're catastrophizing a little. The doctors always say worst case. She's strong. She'll be fine. I hung up. I sat on the edge of my bunk in the empty barracks and I stared at the photograph on my nightstand. My mother and me at my army graduation. Her arms around my neck. Her smile so wide it took up half her face. Hold on, Mama, I thought. Please hold on. It was my friend Sergeant Denise Parker who told me. Denise and I had been close since basic training, the kind of friendship forged in exhaustion and shared hardship that becomes unbreakable. She was stationed back in Tennessee on a training rotation. She had been there for 2 weeks. She called me at 9 p.m. on that second night. Maya, she said. I need to tell you something, and I need you to know I am telling you, because I love you and because you deserve to know the truth. My blood went cold. Tell me, I said. I saw Daniel today. At Rosewood Restaurant on 5th. He wasn't alone, Maya. He was with a woman. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't colleagues. He had his hand on hers across the table, and he was looking at her the way she stopped. The way a man looks at someone he's in love with. The room tilted. Are you sure it was him? Maya. I've known Daniel for 6 years. I was at your wedding. It was him. I sat with that for a long moment. The phone pressed against my ear. The barracks quiet around me. The November wind pushing against the windows. My mother was in a hospital bed asking for me. My husband was at a restaurant with another woman. And I was trapped behind a military gate 400 miles from both of them. What does she look like? I heard myself ask. I don't know why I asked that. Maybe because some part of me needed to make it real. Young, Denise said quietly. Pretty. Dark hair. She was laughing at something he said. She was laughing. My mother was dying and this woman was laughing. Thank you for telling me, I said. My voice was completely steady. 6 years in the army teaches you to keep your voice steady when everything inside you is falling apart. Thank you, Denise. Maya, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, I said. I needed to know. I hung up. And then I called Daniel one more time. He answered on the first ring this time. Interesting. Maya, hey, where are you right now, Daniel? A half-second pause. Just half a second. But I had learned to read silences. I'm home. Just got in actually. Long day. Were you at Rosewood Restaurant tonight? Silence. Full silence this time. I don't, I said. Please don't insult me by lying. Were you at Rosewood Restaurant tonight with a woman? The silence stretched out like a road going nowhere. Maya, my mother, I said, and my voice cracked for the first time, is lying in a hospital bed 400 miles away asking for me. She is asking for me by name. And I cannot get to her. I cannot hold her hand. I cannot tell her I love her one more time while she can still hear me. And you, the one person I asked, the one person you were at a restaurant with her. It's not Maya. It's complicated. It's not what you, is she the reason you didn't go to the hospital? Nothing. That nothing was the loudest answer I had ever heard. Good night, Daniel, I said. I turned my phone face down on the mattress. And I sat in the dark and I thought about my mother's hands. How they felt when she braided my hair as a little girl. How they smelled like dish soap and lavender lotion. How they felt wrapped around mine at my wedding, squeezing gently, saying without words, I'm here. I'm always here. At 11 p.m. I went back to Captain Reeves. She was still in her office. Still working. When she saw my face, she stood up immediately. Calloway, sir, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me. Is there any way at all, that I can get off this base tonight? She looked at me for a long time. Sit down, Maya. She had never used my first name before. I sat. She came around from behind her desk and sat in the chair across from me, not behind her authority, but beside me. Just two women in a quiet office at 11 o'clock at night. The humanitarian exception came through an hour ago, she said. I was going to tell you first thing tomorrow. But she paused. I can process it tonight. Right now. You can be at the gate by midnight. I stared at her. Sir, your mother needs you, she said simply. Go. I was in my car by 11:47 p.m. I drove through the night. 400 miles of dark highway and November rain. I called Aunt Carol at every rest stop. She's still here, Carol kept saying. She's still here, Maya. Drive fast. I drove fast. I talked to my mother through the phone the way you talk to someone when you're terrified the call will be your last. Carol held the phone to her ear and I just talked. I told her about the base. I told her about the rain on the highway. I told her about the wildflowers I was going to plant in her garden in the spring. I told her she was the best person I had ever known. I told her that everything good in me came from her. I told her I loved her in every way I knew how to say it. She can hear you, Carol whispered. She's squeezing my hand, Maya. She's squeezing my hand. I pressed the gas harder. I arrived at Memorial Hospital at 4:17 in the morning. I ran through those hospital corridors in my army boots, still in my uniform, hair pulled back, eyes burning from hours of crying and driving and fighting to hold myself together. Room 114. I pushed the door open. And there she was. My mother. Small in the white hospital bed. Smaller than I remembered. Hooked to machines that breathed and beeped and monitored everything. But her face was still hers. Still the face that had been over my childhood bed every night. Still the face that had looked up at me with pure, uncomplicated pride at every milestone of my life. Her eyes opened when I walked in. Slowly. With effort. But they opened. And she smiled. The most exhausted, most beautiful smile I had ever seen in my life. There she is, she whispered. Barely a sound. More breath than voice. My soldier. I crossed that room in 3 steps and I took her hands in mine and I pressed my forehead to hers and I just held on. I'm here, Mama, I said. I'm here. I made it. Her fingers tightened around mine. Weak, but deliberate. Intentional. I knew you would, she breathed. I told Carol. I said, Maya always comes home. I stayed there, bent over her bed, holding her hands, while the machines beeped steadily around us. She made it through that night. And the next morning. She passed away quietly on the 3rd day, just before sunrise, with my hands in hers and Aunt Carol beside me and the soft gray light of dawn coming through the hospital window. She was not alone. She was never alone. I made sure of that. Daniel came to the hospital on the 2nd day. He walked into the waiting room and saw me sitting there, still in my uniform, hollow-eyed, a cup of cold coffee in my hands, and he stopped in the doorway with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Guilt. Real guilt. The kind that has nowhere left to hide. "Maya," he said. I looked at him for a long moment. This man I had loved for 8 years. Married for 6. Built my entire vision of the future around. This man who had not gone to sit with my dying mother because he was at a restaurant holding another woman's hand. "You don't need to explain," I said quietly. "I don't want an explanation." "Maya, please." "Her name is Eleanor," I said. "My mother's name is Eleanor. She's in room 114 and she's been asking for me for 3 days. She has maybe 1 day left. If you want to do something, go sit with her. Talk to her. Tell her something kind. That's the only thing you can do now that will mean anything at all." He went in. I don't know what he said to her. I never asked. But when he came out 20 minutes later, his eyes were red, and he looked like a man who had just understood the full weight of what he had done. He didn't say anything. He just left. And I went back to room 114, and I held my mother's hand, and I watched the sunrise with her one last time. It has been 8 months since I buried my mother in the Tennessee ground she loved. I filed for divorce 3 weeks after the funeral. Daniel signed the papers without a fight. Maybe because he knew there was no argument to be made. Maybe because even he understood that some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. I am still in the Army. I am still Sergeant First Class Maya Calloway. I have started planting the wildflower garden at my mother's house, the one I promised her on the phone that rainy night on the highway. Aunt Carol comes over on Sundays. We drink coffee on the porch, and sometimes we talk about Eleanor, and sometimes we just sit in the quiet and let her presence fill the space around us. I have learned things this year that I wish I hadn't needed to learn. I have learned that love without loyalty is just performance. I have learned that the people who show up for you in the worst moments of your life are your real family, and sometimes those people wear army uniforms, and sometimes they are aunts who hold phones to dying women's ears at 2 a.m. I have learned that my mother was right all those years ago at my wedding, when she squeezed my hands and looked me in the eye. "He better deserve you, Maya." He didn't. But she did. And I made it to her in time. That is the thing I hold on to when the nights get hard, and the grief gets heavy, and the anger rises up without warning. I made it to her in time. She did not leave this world alone. And she absolutely knew, that her daughter would always come home.